The story continues as Xiao Yin glanced around the grand hall, his expression suddenly turning grave. "The seal is disappearing," he said solemnly. As his words fell, the 10 light orbs began to tremble violently. The scrolls within, accompanied by blinding light, transformed into streaks of flowing light, shooting out from the orbs rapidly. At the same time, the stone puppet sculptures around the stone seats opened their eyes, and a dense killing intent immediately filled the air. "The heaven-class combat skill has emerged." A shrill cry broke the brief silence in the grand hall. Immediately, powerful waves of Do Qi exploded, and numerous figures surged towards the streaks of light like a swarm of locusts. Faced with the obstruction from many experts, the 10 streaks of light seemed to have their own intelligence, dodging attacks with agile maneuvers. In midair, figures clashed, and the sounds of combat echoed continuously. Soon, several figures fell, spitting blood. Amidst the chaos, Xiao Yan's eyes roamed, noticing that the real powerhouses and factions like the Soul Hall had not made a move yet. Clearly, they intended to wait until others had fought each other to exhaustion before making their move. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed in the grand hall, causing everyone's expressions to change dramatically. The awakened puppets around the stone seats had immediately attacked the nearest people. These puppets, all at the Do Zun level, attacked with terrifying force. These were not ordinary puppets. Their eyes still held remnants of vitality, blazing with intense murderous intent. The Do Zun of Fire explained gravely, "These are ancient puppets. Through a special method, the souls of powerful individuals were extracted and sealed within the puppet bodies. Puppets made this way not only possess intelligence, but can also perform combat skills, making them far more formidable than ordinary puppets." Hearing this, Xiao Yin couldn't help but take a cold breath. The methods of this Dosheng were truly vicious. To create these puppets, he must have killed at least a dozen Do Zun experts. In the spacious grand hall, the already chaotic situation became even more frenzied with the addition of these rampaging puppets. The powerhouses and factions who had initially planned to sit back and reap the benefits could no longer remain on the sidelines, as these formidable puppets had included them in their attack range. Xiao Yin glanced at the chaotic hall and said, "I'll make the first move to see if I can snatch a scroll. The rest of you, hold back. We can't be greedy, or we'll only bring trouble upon ourselves." Everyone had lost their senses under the allure of the 10 flying scrolls, their eyes red with madness as they pursued them relentlessly. Anyone who got close to a scroll was instantly surrounded and overwhelmed by others, and amid the surging Do Qi, those who obtained a scroll were crushed into a rain of blood before they could even scream. Just as everyone nodded in agreement, a dozen figures not far ahead suddenly exploded into a mist of blood. Among the blood mist, a gray shadow shot out like lightning, wielding a blood-drenched spear and charging fiercely at Xiao Yin and his group. The little fairy doctor, seeing the gray shadow rapidly approaching, flashed in front of Xiao Yin. While she intercepted the puppet, Xiao Yin took the opportunity to quickly examine them. Being so close, he could clearly see that the surface of these puppets was wrapped in a peculiar grayish-white fabric, which shimmered with a strange luster, appearing soft yet possessing significant defensive strength. "Try to see if you can control these puppets," the Do Zun of Fire said in a deep voice. Xiao Yin quickly nodded, his soul force surging out and drilling into the puppet's body. Then he shook his head, feeling regretful, and said, "The mark is too strong. I can't control it. I can't erase them with my current strength." Xiao Yin said, "Let's get ready to move. I'll go for the scrolls, and you intercept the other experts." Hearing this, everyone nodded, and Do Qi quickly surged within them. Xiao Yan's gaze swept across the mid-air scene and then focused on a red streak of light. "Let's target that one." The scroll is entirely crimson, seemingly related to fire attribute energy. Xiao Yan's eyes closely followed the movement of the crimson streak of light. Moments later, the streak of light finally appeared in the area where Xiao Yan and his group were. Xiao Yan's sudden intervention drew everyone's attention, and many people's expressions changed slightly, followed by fierce Do Qi assaults aimed at Xiao Yan. Seeing the dozen or so Do Qi attacks, Xiao Yan snorted coldly, and 5 purple-brown fire pillars shot out rapidly. The fire pillars clashed heavily with the Do Qi, almost effortlessly destroying them. The remaining fire pillars exploded on the bodies of those who had attacked. Xiao Yan's actions made the only Do Zun expert in this circle's face darken. He had been chasing the Crimson Scroll and was the strongest in this group, with the highest chance of success. Xiao Yan's sudden move naturally aroused his killing intent. A Do Zun expert flashed to appear above Xiao Yan, holding a giant mountain-splitting axe, which he swung down with terrifying power, shouting, "Get out of my way!" "Get out? Do you think you're qualified?" Xiao Yan sneered, gripping the mysterious heavy ruler, and met the descending axe with a fierce swing. The clash of ruler and axe produced a thunderous metallic sound, and the Do Zun expert spewed blood from his mouth, shock written all over his face. He realized he had lost the qualification to continue competing with Xiao Yan for the scroll and could only retreat unwillingly. After repelling this person, Xiao Yan's gaze swiftly turned towards the Crimson Scroll's location. He stamped his foot fiercely and darted towards the scroll like lightning. He knocked aside some obstructing figures and almost instantly reached the vicinity of the scroll. Just as his hand touched the scroll, it suddenly shot a short distance away. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's expression turned cold. He curved his hand into a claw and grabbed at the fleeing Crimson Scroll, increasing the suction force in his palm. The terrifying force pulled the scroll back. Xiao Yan grasped his hand once more, and finally, half of the Crimson Scroll landed in his hand. However, as he exerted force, Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed. A withered hand had also gripped the other end of the scroll tightly. "Trying to hog the treasure for yourself? How naive," said the familiar cold voice. Hearing this slightly familiar sneer, Xiao Yan quickly looked up and found that the person was none other than Chen Tianan, the master of the mysterious Abyss sect. Seeing Xiao Yan's gaze, Chen Tianan sneered sinisterly. His right fist clenched and, without hesitation, he swung it fiercely towards Xiao Yan's head. A flash of cold light appeared in Xiao Yan's eyes, and a golden light suddenly emerged in front of him. Chen Tianan's fist landed heavily on the golden figure's body, but the next moment, the iron fist of the heavenly demon puppet smashed towards Chen Tianan's head. Feeling the terrifying power in the punch, Chen Tianan unwillingly released his grip on the scroll and quickly retreated. As soon as he let go, Xiao Yan grabbed the scroll and swiftly stored it in his storage ring. After securing the scroll, Xiao Yan's face turned icy, and he directed his gaze towards Chen Tianan, who looked somewhat disheveled under the heavenly demon puppet's assault. Killing intent surged in his eyes. "Old man, since you've made a move, don't think you can leave." Chen Tianan's strength was roughly at the level of a 2-star Do Zun, while the heavenly demon puppet's combat power could hold its own even against a 3-star peak Do Zun. Naturally, it could firmly suppress him in battle. In mid-air, Chen Tianan and the heavenly demon puppet clashed fiercely. The terrifying force transmitted through his arm caused Chen Tianan to stagger back a dozen steps in mid-air. His internal energy surged chaotically, and a pale hue appeared on his face. The heavenly demon puppet, devoid of any pain sensation, fought like a killing machine. It would never stop unless Xiao Yan commanded it to, making Chen Tianan suffer greatly in their exchange. Seeing he was at a disadvantage, Chen Tianan attempted to flee. Xiao Yan sneered, "Trying to escape?" Just as Chen Tianan was overwhelmed by a sense of danger, a subtle cold voice, accompanied by a chilling wind, eerily whispered in his ear, "Heaven's sealing seal." Chen Tianan, realizing the threat, hastily mobilized his Do Qi within his body. However, before he could form a complete defense behind him, a palm-sized, purple-brown handprint silently landed on his back. As soon as Chen Tianan turned around, his body suddenly stiffened. A dark golden fist punched through his chest, blood sticking to the dark golden arm, dripping continuously. Blood foam bubbled from Chen Tianan's mouth, his life force quickly draining away. His stiff body slowly softened and finally collapsed to the ground. The sect leader of the mysterious Abyss sect, a Do Zun of the 2-star level, fell at the hands of Xiao Yan and the heavenly demon puppet. Watching Chen Tianan collapse, the coldness on Xiao Yan's face gradually faded. He waved his hand, storing the Heavenly Demon puppet into his storage ring. The Heavenly Demon Phoenix Clan and Wind Lightning Pavilion each obtained a scroll. Ice River Valley and Flame Burning Valley also acquired something. Additionally, 2 more scrolls fell into the hands of 2 powerful experts, said the Dozun of Fire softly from the side. Xiao Yin was momentarily stunned, then nodded again. These factions came prepared, so it wasn't too surprising they obtained scrolls. What now? Only 3 scrolls are left. Who knows how many have died for those? Should we try to snatch more? Asked the little fairy doctor. These scrolls indeed contain impressive combat skills or techniques, but they aren't heaven-class combat skills. We've all been tricked, murmured Xiao Yin, his eyes narrowing. Hearing this, the little fairy doctor and the others frowned, their gazes shifting before suddenly asking, "What are those Soul Hall people planning?" Xiao Yin was startled, following the little fairy doctor's gaze. He saw the star-plucking old ghost and several other Soul Hall experts moving in a formation, slowly approaching the Dosheng skeleton in the center of the hall. "Their target is that Dosheng skeleton?" asked the Dozun of Fire in a deep voice. "Should we stop them?" Ziyin asked eagerly. Xiao Yan's gaze was fixed on the skeleton sitting cross-legged on the stone seat. After a moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed. In that instant, he saw the skeleton's finger twitch slightly. The Dosheng skeleton is alive? The star-plucking old ghost stared feverishly at the jade-white skeleton, licking his lips uncontrollably. He took 2 more bold steps forward, reaching out his hand towards the skeleton. Just as the star-plucking old ghost's hand was about to touch the skeleton, the space around it rippled slightly. Suddenly, it transformed into countless sharp spatial spikes, piercing into his hand. The sharp pain in his hand made the star-plucking old ghost flinch, quickly retracting his hand. He found his palm bleeding heavily, with some of the blood drops gently falling onto the cross-legged skeleton. As he watched the blood seeping into the jade-white skeleton, an overwhelming sense of unease began to spread through the star-plucking old ghost's heart. When the blood fully penetrated the skeleton, the star-plucking old ghost's eyes widened in shock. In that moment, he felt a resurgence of life force from the skeleton, which had been dead for countless years. "Damn, retreat quickly." As the Soul Hall experts were about to retreat, the jade-white skeleton on the stone seat trembled slightly. It slowly raised its head and let out a deafening roar. The terrifying sound transformed into tangible sound waves, sweeping out like a storm. The slower-reacting Soul Hall experts were the first to be affected by the soundwave storm. As the sound wave caught up with them, their bodies exploded like sandbags hit by a cannonball. Even the star-plucking old ghost didn't escape the attack's range, but his quick reaction left him only slightly injured. The sudden bloody scene snapped everyone out of their enchantment with the heaven-class combat skills, horror dawning on their faces. Many figures fled the center of the hall like frightened dogs. After the sound wave dissipated, a cold dread filled everyone's hearts. At least 100 had died from the sound wave, including 2 Dozun experts. "Star-plucking old ghost, what did you do?" Tang Zhan and others snapped out of the shock and angrily glared at the star-plucking old ghost. "I don't know why that ancient skeleton suddenly exploded. Several of my Soul Hall experts are dead too," the star-plucking old ghost replied, taking a deep breath. "If your blood hadn't dripped on the bones, would it have awakened? And now you want to shirk responsibility?" Xiao Yin sneered. Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the star-plucking old ghost's face changed, but seeing the growing anger around him, he reluctantly bowed his head. "I was indeed reckless, but now is not the time for blame. If I'm not mistaken, that Dosheng skeleton should contain a remnant of its owner's consciousness. It's formidable, but not insurmountable. If it unleashes another sound wave, few of us will survive." Tang Zhan's face darkened. Several strong experts from Flame Burning Valley were also killed by that sound wave. "Since we have the scrolls, let's leave now. This thing is too terrifying," someone in the crowd whispered, their voice tinged with undisguised fear. "This remnant consciousness will likely eliminate everyone who trespassed into the relic. If we try to escape, none of us might make it out alive," the star-plucking old ghost said solemnly. Xiao Yin narrowed his eyes slightly, sensing that the star-plucking old ghost was eager to deal with the Dosheng skeleton, but his cautious nature meant he wouldn't recklessly risk his life. The star-plucking old ghost's words caused a stir, and those with weaker strength showed even more fear, but no one dared to turn and flee. Amidst the chaos, a faint sound of bone movement echoed through the hall, growing closer. The noise was slight, but felt as if it was stepping on everyone's heart, causing extreme oppression. The blood mist within the hall slowly fluctuated, and then a skeleton, entirely dyed blood red by the mist, walked out slowly, coming into view. Trespassers in the relic shall die. The blood-red skeleton stopped about 100 meters in front of the crowd, raising its head slowly. Its hollow eyes flickered with a blood-red light, and an ancient, hoarse voice echoed in the hall. Everyone, don't panic. This Dosheng skeleton is not a true Dosheng. To defeat it, we must work together. The star-plucking old ghost said in a deep voice. Old Star Plucker is right, but since you woke this skeleton, you should be the first to attack, Xiao said with a faint smile. Indeed, you must bear most of the responsibility. If you want us to join forces against it, you have to take the lead. Tangzhen nodded in agreement. Several other experts also contemplated for a moment before agreeing, already displeased with the star-plucking old ghost's reckless actions, now finding some satisfaction in this minor revenge. Seeing this, the star-plucking old ghost's face twitched involuntarily. Everyone makes a valid point. In that case, I'll take the lead. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the star-plucking old ghost had no choice but to nod reluctantly. Don't worry, old star-plucker, we won't let you die at the hands of the Dosheng skeleton, Xiao said with a smile. Enough with the chatter. We need to act quickly. The Dosheng skeleton seems to be absorbing power from the blood mist to replenish itself, the black-robed elder from the heavenly demon phoenix clan said coldly. Everyone was startled by this statement. Old Starplucker, it's time to make your move, Xiao said sternly. The star-plucking old ghost's eye twitched, suppressing the urge to slap Xiao and gritted his teeth. I know, you don't have to remind me. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure turned into a blurred black shadow, swiftly charging towards the blood-red skeleton in the center of the hall. The red glow in the blood-red skeleton's eyes flickered as it saw the black shadow infused with Do Qi rapidly approaching. It stepped forward, and its dark red skeletal hand reached directly for the star-plucking old ghost. The speed of the blood-red skeleton caused the latter's heart to sink. He clenched his fist, instantly concentrating his Do Qi into his right arm, and then punched fiercely. However, the punch only forced the Dosheng skeleton back a step, while he himself was knocked back a dozen steps. Xiao and the others watched the fierce battle with amazement. The Dosheng relic was indeed powerful, even suppressing a strong expert like the star-plucking old ghost. While everyone was in awe, the sound of something slicing through the air suddenly echoed in the hall. Several figures quickly emerged from the blood mist, launching a fierce attack on the star-plucking old ghost. Everyone realized it was the previously unhandled puppets. After the earlier battle, 6 of these puppets still remained. Now, appearing simultaneously, they immediately changed the star-plucking old ghost's expression. Damn it! Why are you all still standing around? Start fighting! The star-plucking old ghost roared. The black-robed elder from the heavenly demon phoenix clan also realized they could no longer stand by. He glanced at Tangzhen and Bing He, and together with Xiao who was also a 1-star Dozun, he summoned the 4 to attack the Dosheng skeleton simultaneously. Xiao pondered for a moment, and seeing Tangzhen and the Dozun of Ice nod in agreement, he had no choice but to consent. He then glanced around at the surrounding experts and said, As for those 6 puppets, we'll leave them to you. With that, Xiao and the other 3 swiftly moved into the hall, forming a circle around the Dosheng skeleton. As Xiao and the others began their assault, the other experts in the hall immediately took action, their figures darting into the hall to draw the 6 puppets away. Let's attack together and be wary of its speed, the star-plucking old ghost reminded, and the group nodded slightly in response. Do Qi surged from them like tidal waves, enveloping the Dosheng skeleton and causing sparks to fly. Each heavy blow from Xiao and his group gradually faded the blood-red color from the skeleton. Seeing the effectiveness of their attacks, the group's morale soared. Xiao Yan's feet flickered with silver light as he flew within half a meter of the Dosheng skeleton. Purple-brown flames enveloped his hand as he struck a rib on the skeleton's back, scattering the blood-red hue with a burst of dazzling sparks. Just as Xiao Yan was about to retreat after his successful strike, he stared intently at the now jade-white rib. He noticed faint, strange characters emerging on it. Seeing these characters, Xiao Yan was first taken aback. Then a thought of incredulity surged in his mind. Could these characters be the heaven-class combat skills? Xiao Yan's gaze locked onto the jade-white rib. He realized the real treasure was hidden within the skeleton, and the star-plucking old ghost had attacked because he knew the location of the treasure. Xiao Yan used his flames to destroy the blood mist on the skeleton, discovering that only a few ribs in the waist area bore these strange characters, 3 ribs in total. A barely noticeable excitement flickered in his eyes. The characters on these 3 ribs must indeed be the true heaven-class combat skills. Understanding this, Xiao Yan dared not linger too long, fearing others would notice. He quickly avoided the skeleton's sharp bone claws. Meanwhile, the star-plucking old ghost, seeing the diminishing redness on the skeleton, shouted joyfully, "Everyone, keep it up! This skeleton can't hold on much longer." The others ignored his words, knowing the skeleton's resilience. If not for the fading red indicating some effect from their attacks, they might have already lost hope. Amid the fierce bombardment from Xiao Yan and the other 4, the Dosheng skeleton's body suddenly froze. The star-plucking old ghost and the others were momentarily stunned, but quickly seized the opportunity to launch a series of continuous attacks. However, Xiao Yan felt a tinge of unease. Dosheng experts were truly formidable. Even a remnant soul wouldn't be easily defeated. Leave the main hall. Xiao Yan's thought flashed, and he suddenly turned to transmit a message to Little Fairy Doctor and the others. Terrifying attacks exploded on the skeletal remains of the Dosheng like fireworks. After a brief pause, it abruptly raised its head, emitting a faint, hoarse voice, "Great Creation Palm." The voice entered Xiao Yan's ears, causing every hair on his body to stand on end. A profound sense of danger surged from the depths of his soul. Almost instantly, Xiao Yan turned and dashed desperately towards the distance. It was executing a combat skill. As Xiao Yan fled, Tang Zhan and the others also sensed something amiss, their faces showing fear as they hurriedly turned to escape. The ragged escape of Xiao Yan and his companions drew the attention of everyone in the main hall. Though they were unsure of what had happened, they knew it spelled serious trouble. Reacting swiftly, they too retreated, plunging the entire hall into chaos once more. Amidst the chaos, the crimson hue over the Dosheng's skeletal frame suddenly became vibrant, converging entirely into its palm. As the final trace of blood red gathered on its right palm, a tiny black, the size of a soybean, suddenly appeared in the center. Its right palm rose sharply and then slammed heavily onto the incredibly hard floor of the hall. At the moment of impact, the seemingly indestructible stone slab vanished as if in an instant, replaced by a black ring of light that swiftly expanded. As the black ring expanded, countless individuals were petrified. Whether it was stone pillars or other objects, anything caught in the ring vanished without a trace. The horrific scene left everyone's scalp tingling. The wails of agony echoed incessantly through the hall. Hearing the continuous screams, Xiao Yan's scalp also tingled. This combat skill was undoubtedly of heaven-class caliber. With gritted teeth, he pushed his speed to the limit, finally managing to burst out of the hall at the last moment. The onlookers stared in terror at the eerie black ring spreading within the hall. Fortunately, as it reached the edge of the square, the ring gradually halted, ultimately dissipating under their gaze. As the black ring vanished, a massive crater came into view, destroying what had once been the expansive main hall. Xiao Yan swallowed hard, took a deep breath to calm his inner panic, and fixed his gaze on the enormous crater suspended in midair. Within it floated a jade-white skeleton, its eye sockets now devoid of the crimson glow, indicating the complete disappearance of the residual soul left by the Dosheng expert. Heaven-class combat skill, Xiao Yan muttered. His eyes locked intensely on the jade-white bones, burning with an astonishing fervor. "Are you okay?" Little fairy doctor and the others rushed over anxiously as Xiao Yin stood up. He smiled and shook his head, glancing at everyone and relieved to see no injuries. "You gave us a timely warning," little fairy doctor remarked. "Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable." That palm strike from the Doshang skeleton was truly terrifying. I doubt anyone here could have withstood it. The Dozun of Fire still bore a look of astonishment in his eyes, then spoke softly. "Most of those who survived are powerful individuals. Fortunately, they are also injured. However, our side has managed to preserve our strength relatively intact." Xiaoyan smiled faintly and said softly, "No rush. Someone will be impatient to make the first move soon." Upon hearing Xiao Yan's words, little fairy doctor and the others turned their gaze towards the direction of star-plucking old ghost. They saw the old ghost's face now filled with undisguised excitement. "This thing has caused the deaths of many strong members of my soul hall. Today, I will personally make sure he is completely obliterated." Suddenly, star-plucking old ghost stood up, speaking loudly and forcefully. Then his figure blurred into a swift shadow, rushing towards the skeletal remains of the Do Shang above the deep crater. Seeing star-plucking old ghost act, Tangzhen and Ice River Valley's Dozun snorted coldly. "Do you really think we're fools?" Their eyesight was keen enough to recognize the extraordinary nature of the Do Shang's remains. How could such a treasure be allowed to fall into star-plucking old ghost's hands without a fight? As soon as the challenge was issued, all three moved simultaneously. In a few blinks, they caught up with star-plucking old ghost, launching a series of strikes at him. Feeling the intense attacks from behind, star-plucking old ghost's face changed. Tang Zhen and the other two were his equals in strength. He couldn't withstand their combined assault. Twisting his body, he barely evaded three powerful strikes. Tang Zhen and the others intercepted him, then swiftly maneuvered past his head, aggressively aiming for the arm of the Doshang's remains. Star-plucking old ghost erupted in fury, exclaiming, "Damn it!" His palms surged with a suction force, momentarily freezing the three in midair. Seizing the opportunity, he swiftly reached out and grasped the arm of the Doshang's remains. Before he could exert any force, a fierce gust of wind struck violently towards his head. Star-plucking old ghost felt the powerful wind behind him and quickly swung the Doshang's skeletal remains to block the palm strikes from Feng Xian and the others. The forceful impact exploded against the bones, pushing star-plucking old ghost back a few steps, but the skeletal defense prevented him from being injured. Without a word, he tightly gripped the Doshang's bones and turned to flee. Just as star-plucking old ghost turned around, a figure materialized in front of him, wielding a massive ruler that came down with fierce momentum. The heavy ruler struck sparks against the bones, forcing star-plucking old ghost back another step. At this moment, the three caught up again, besieging him with attacks. Facing three opponents of similar strength, star-plucking old ghost was in a desperate situation. After dozens of rounds, he began to weaken, opting to retreat. However, Feng Xian and the others didn't give him the chance. Seizing the opportunity, despite its extreme hardness, the skeletal remains couldn't withstand such relentless assault. With a crisp sound, his left arm was forcibly severed by the three. Star-plucking old ghost watched in fury as the skeletal remains flew out of his grasp. Grabbing a piece of the jade-white severed arm, he roared angrily and lunged towards the flying bones. But before he could reach them, a young figure appeared first, seizing the severed arm of the Doshang's bones. Star-plucking old ghost, raging, shouted, "Xiao Yin, you're seeking death.